how far do you think that in our society now we've moved away from that premise? Or do you know much about the feminism today? How do you see it?
Oh, go on, Bianca.
Dionne, so as part of, obviously, you guys know that I'm an English teacher in school, and something that we do in school, in my school, is we've designed our curriculum so that we teach literature chronologically. So we look at the role of women in the Renaissance era, and then we look at women during like the period of the Romantics, and then moving into the Victorian era, and so on, right up until present day. And when you spoke about this just then, it made me think about some of the conversations I've had with my students, particularly my year 10 girls, where they learn about what life was like for women in the Renaissance era. And then they see how it subtly changed, but not so much when we get to like the Victorian era, and then moving into present day. And, you know, their reaction is, they weren't allowed to do what? You know, they did that. They can't believe it. And then we reflect and we look at what life's like today. And a lot of the girls will turn around and say, not in my house. You know, my mum doesn't cook for my dad. My mum doesn't do that. And I think, wow, your mum's probably my age, actually. You know, I'm a similar age to some of your parents. And it's interesting that when I was younger, I know Sonia was saying about the younger generation, she's talking about her daughter, and I'm the same age as Sonia's daughters, some of them. But when I was younger, and obviously I lived at home with my mum and my dad, my mum didn't explicitly or overtly teach me, you know, this is how you look after a man. I just, you know, I see my mum looking after my dad. I see my mum cooking the meals for the family. I see my mum, you know, bringing the food to the table, you know, taking food to my dad. I see my mum ironing my dad's shirts, and she never explicitly or overtly said to me, you know, Bianca, when the day comes that you get married, this is what you're going to be doing. I didn't have those lessons per se. And I don't think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think my mum's mum did that to her. I don't think that generation did that to my mum. So I think it's just what you experience and what you see. And these girls in the generation, you know, they're 15, 16, they're openly telling me that in their homes at home, they don't see their mothers cooking and caring and looking after their dads in the sense of how it was put on that video, on that clip that you showed us. They don't see that. And when we're reading articles and we're reading extracts and they're learning, you know, we looked at Jane Eyre and different things like that, they're shocked. They're shocked that, oh, he doesn't cook, you know, I wouldn't have that. And then they've got this big opinion and you think, wow, okay. I think it's things have definitely changed with the times. And I think it's very subjective to culture as well. So I think there are certain cultures and there are certain, you know, there's people in society where it's still very much the kitchen is a woman's domain. You know, women look, you know, I taught in Dubai and I saw the way in the Arab culture and in Arabic families, I saw the way a lot of the women don't work and they do look after their home, and they really take pride in looking after their home. And the girls, you know, I taught in an all-girls school, I taught in an all-boys school. The girls have ambitions to become a wife when you speak to them. And what do you know, I'm here teaching you To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm asking you what you want to do with the rest of your life. I'm teaching you literature, and you're telling me you want to become a wife. That's amazing. That's brilliant. I'm not quite sure what literature is going to do to help you in that sense. But I feel like, dependent on culture, dependent on generation, there's a lot of, I want to use the word values. There's a lot of values that have changed. There's a lot of priorities that have changed in women. So when you're talking about how far are we away from, you were saying about the original start of the feminist movement and where we are now, I think I look at my own experience, and then I listen to Sonia and listen to what the snippets that Sonia's saying, and then her daughter's reaction to those. And then I think about the girls in my school that are a generation below me, you might say. And I think, okay, so we can really see how different cultures, different generations have changed there, because I feel that before I was married, I had a completely different view of how to keep a home. And then I got married, and it changed slightly. So I don't know, maybe I've just waffled on a bit there and not really got
Can I ask you to go back? What do you think were your views before you got married, and how did they change?
I was very much of the opinion of Sonia's daughter. So I would very much be like, I'm not doing that. You're mad. You know, could do it himself. And I don't know where that came from. Society is where it came from, because it didn't come from my family home. It didn't come from me observing my mum. You know, it didn't come from me being at my aunties' houses and observing my aunties. So it definitely came from society. I think it came from me being extremely independent as well. I left home at a really young age. And, you know, I got my first house at a very young age, and just being extremely independent, living on my own for such a long time. You know, I felt like I ruled the world. And then the idea of a man coming into that and asking me to do things for him, no, you can do that yourself, you know. But I definitely believe society was the influence on me, and probably things that I was reading, you know, or things I was watching on the television, or, you know, social media. But then I got married, and I take joy in doing things for Jade. Just how I would look after my brothers. I've got brothers, you know, I've got 3 younger brothers. Just how I would look after my brothers and how I would care for my brothers. When my dad comes over, and I take joy in cooking dinner for my dad and serving my dad, is the same way that I take joy in doing things around the house. However, one of the first things that Jade and I established, because, you know, we didn't live together before we got married. You know, we got married and then we moved in together, and that was a shock to the system, because I'd never lived with a man before other than my dad and my brothers. But those conversations had to be had very, very early around what are your expectations, what are my expectations, how do we find a balance here, you know. And I've also learned where the things that he sees value in, and there has to be compromise, doesn't there?